Hey, I'm glad you tuned in again this week as we prepare for John chapter 11 this coming Sunday. And I suppose every preacher, every Bible teacher feels this way. I mean, every week it's somewhat of an intimidating thing to think, Lord, help me, and how do I handle this text? And I understand it presented in a way that's correct. It's always a great responsibility, but there are some weeks and some sections of Scripture that are especially they're just special, and they're powerful, and this is one this week for me. John chapter 11, the story of Jesus raising Lazarus. Just an incredible chapter, incredible story. So I'm looking forward to sharing it together on Sunday, and you be praying for me as we both make preparations for that. It's kind of the pinnacle, John chapter 11, of John's Gospel, the high point, the centerpiece of it. I guess you kind of come up to it like the top of a hill. And from this point in John 11, you can look back at all the miracles that Jesus has performed. This is the seventh out of seven that John's going to cite that we might believe. Remember John 20, verses 30 and 31. And so from here you kind of look back at all the other signs and miracles. And from this point on top of the hill, then you look the other direction forward and you really accelerate towards Jesus' cross and His own resurrection. So this is a real central point. And this is the first time that John introduces us to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And by the way he writes it, you kind of see that he assumes that we, the readers, and those that would read this even back then, are somewhat familiar with these three people. Probably they'd heard stories about Mary and Martha and Lazarus, assuming maybe that they had read the other Gospels that were written earlier than John. But they were two sisters and a brother. They were very dear, very close friends of Jesus. And they lived in a little town called Bethany, which was about 2 miles away from Jerusalem. And Jesus was far away from there. He was staying away from Jerusalem in that area because the leaders were trying to kill him. So he's quite a distance away. You might be familiar with other stories about Mary and Martha and Lazarus, like the time they were having a banquet in the house there for Jesus, and Martha was serving and upset that Mary wasn't helping because she was sitting and listening to Jesus teaching and not helping with the serving. Or another time when Mary anointed Jesus' feet with costly perfume. We don't know a lot about Lazarus. There's a lot said of him. He seems to be very well off, very generous. We know that he was definitely loved by Jesus. So a possible time frame of what's going on here, just to consider, just a possible time frame. Mary and Martha send off a messenger from Lazarus to Jesus. It takes him a couple days to get to Jesus because he's quite a ways away. The day the messenger gets to Jesus and tells Jesus that Lazarus is very sick and near death, turns out to be the day that Lazarus dies. It's interesting that in the message the messenger carries to Jesus, they don't ask Jesus to come. They just relay the news that he's sick. I wonder why. I don't know. I just wonder why. What you think about it too? Was it because they think, Jesus, you're doing stuff that's important. We don't expect you to come back for this. We just wanted to let you know? Or was it because they were so close, they assumed if Jesus knows he'll come, we don't even have to ask? I don't know. But he delivers the message, and turns out to be the day, in this potential time frame, that Lazarus actually died. The messenger turns around and comes back to Bethany, arriving when Lazarus has now been dead 2 days, to awkwardly relay the message from Jesus that Lazarus is not going to die, assuming he interpreted what Jesus said that way. That would be kind of an awkward, uncomfortable situation. When Jesus arrives, Mary and Martha, as they come to meet him individually, one at a time, both say really the same thing word for word to Jesus. Why do you think that's so? Why do you think both sisters came and said basically the same thing word for word to Jesus when he arrived? Well, probably then on the day that the messenger got back to Bethany is the day Jesus left to go to Bethany. It took a couple days to get there. So by the time Jesus arrives, Lazarus has been dead 4 days. So that's a potential time frame of how things unfold here. A couple things I want you to think about as you read John chapter 11 to look for. Jesus' humanity and his deity. So powerfully portrayed both. So here in John chapter 11. Jesus had raised others from the dead. So this wasn't his first time of raising somebody from the dead, but he's been in the tomb for 4 days. And what a demonstration of his deity and his power. But what a demonstration of his humanity. You know, it's been said, I suppose maybe everybody's heard this at some time, that this chapter contains the shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. You know, and maybe that's true. Maybe it's true also that it is one of the deepest verses in the Bible. Very short, but so deep. Picture in your mind Jesus' interactions with Mary and Martha. You know, what did he say? Just kind of put yourself in that situation, in that the grief and the love and the circumstance there. What did he say? How do you think he said it? What was the tone of his voice? How else could he have expressed his feelings, his grief, his love, and his facial expressions, body language, and touch, and not just what he said, but how he said? Just really put yourself there with these dear, dear, close friends together that Jesus loved in this time of sorrow. And that Jesus knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. Why did he weep? So his humanity and his deity. Think about that. Second thing to think about maybe from this too then is how God has a bigger plan. When Jesus said this sickness would not end in death, they assumed it meant he would not die. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. God had a bigger plan. God saw a bigger picture. And sometimes even we get confused about what God's doing, because we take what he said in a way that we think we understand, but we don't really get all of it because we don't see the bigger picture. That it would not end in death is not the same thing as saying that he wouldn't die. Have you ever had a time when it sure seemed like God was late? Where were you? But we find in this chapter that there's times when God or Jesus may delay, but he's never late. And there's a big difference there because he has another purpose. He may delay, but he's never late. And Jesus says in John 11, there's two reasons, at least two reasons, of why he waited to go to Bethany. See if you can find them. When you read chapter 11, see if you can find the two reasons Jesus gives of why he waited. Okay. As we come to John chapter 11 and we finish this study, we're going to be moving into a new section the week after that in the Gospel of John. We've been in the section about belief, the signs and miracles to bring us to a point of belief. Then we're going to switch gears and go to the upper room where Jesus is going to be talking to us about how to live as believers. So it's something different. And so I really want you to think as you prepare for this coming Sunday, have you made your decision for Jesus Christ? Have you stepped forward? Have you spoken out to say, I believe he is the Son of God and God the Son, and I want him for my Savior? Because I'm going to ask you about it on Sunday. Will you believe? Do you believe? And are you ready to take that step? So you be praying about that, and I'll see you Sunday.